Okay, time to start. We have time to explore those activities later. Now, so with linguistics, when we talk about different branches of linguistics, there are three big categories that usually come up. And if you have already read the discussion in the books by Professor Lê Quang Thiêm and Carl James, you will see these three big branches of linguistics coming up: general linguistics, descriptive linguistics, and comparative linguistics. So what you have been learning so far with phonetics and phonology, semantics, syntax, social linguistics, all of those subject areas belong to which of these three? Now, what you have been learning so far about phonetics, phonology, syntax, semantics, these called social linguistics. Where do they belong? 1, 2, or 3? Are you sure? Yes. Yeah, that's good. You are right. All of those subject areas are squarely within general linguistics. So general linguistics studies the universal rules that applies to all languages of the world. So it's like all languages have phonemes, and those phonemes coming together to make syllables, sounds, and syllables coming together in order to have words, and then words combining together with syntactic rules to generate sentences and patterns. So that's the studies of general linguistics. Now, descriptive linguistics study languages as they are. That means we study languages in order to describe how they are, to describe how they come together, and also to describe their origin, their relationship to other languages. Now later on, we will discuss in further details about descriptive linguistics and when it has become influential. Comparative linguistics is the one that we will work together for the entire course. Inside comparative linguistics, we have several other branches that we will discuss. But basically, as the name suggests, in comparative linguistics, we compare and construct languages together in order to find their relationships, and also in order to explore some practical applications. So, in general linguistics, the key questions that we ask are these two. What is language? It goes right away in the nature of human language. What makes human language? Where human language comes from, and how languages are formed in different language families of the world. In general linguistics, we also study the relationship between languages and the other human faculties, especially our thinking. Now, this will be the topic of the last topic of the course, or cognitive linguistics, in which we learn about the connection between our thinking and the way we use language. For example, when you say we need to save time. Time is valuable. My time is valuable. Now, when we make those utterances, okay, deep in our thinking, deep in our conscious mind, okay, we think, we conceptualize time, okay, as the money, and that's why we can say we have a lot of time to spend on this project, for example, or time presence. And similarly, when we say when we say they are at the crossroads, like the two lovers. Okay, when we talk about their relationship and we say they are at the crossroads, they are not sure about whether they should stay together or depart, right? Their relationship is spinning on the wheel. It is at a standstill. It's not moving further. It's not going anywhere. Or like they are on the rock. They are experiencing lots of difficulty in their relationship. Now, when you say those things, deep in our mind, we think or we conceptualize love as a journey. You are unconsciously comparing love on the journey toward a marriage, like a real journey that you do in your life. So that's just some examples about the connections between our mind and our language. Now, in general linguistics, we also explore these key aspects. And if you have read the discussion in Professor Thien's book and Professor Bullman's, you know these things very well. What is unique in languages? What is universal? What is common in all languages? Like all languages have nouns, right? All languages have pronouns. All languages have morphemes. All languages have negative and question form and affirmative form. Okay, so those are called the language universals. General linguistics also study the changes that happen in languages over time. Like the case of Vietnamese, you might wonder sometimes why some people write like 5, not with PH, but with an F. Because actually F is a better reflection of the pronunciation that we use. Because when you use PH, you need to say pa, right? It should be an aspiration pa and pa. So it should be actually pi, not phi. But the question here is very much about the history of the development of the languages. 3 or 4 years ago, when we say the words, there is always a schwa sound. Okay, so we say pa, not fa, like what we say today, right? And that's why when Alexander wrote against Vietnam, and observed native Vietnamese speaking Vietnamese at that time, he used her with aspirated top on the top. But the nature of writing is always conservative, and it takes very long time to change. And sometimes it never changes, even though it no longer reflects the way we pronounce words. And you have already read this a lot about English, right? Lots of the spellings in English do not actually reflect what we say or what we speak. Right. So all the interesting things come from general linguistics about how languages change over time. So as you see here, the study of languages is connected to cognitive science, the study of the brain, of the mechanism inside our mind. This is also related to the social values, to the social interaction. We have already learned about this in social linguistics, right? About rank and gender. How gender discrimination may be reflected in the different languages. How your language, they tell other people about your background, about your social status, even your pronunciation, right? So it is related to social studies, it is related to education, especially in science. It is related to computer science, obviously, right? In what way? Can you tell me some examples to show that a general linguistics or the studies of languages that you have been doing so far with phonetics, phonology, syntax has a lot to do with computer science? Any ideas? Yeah.
I think that because when we do programming, actually the most basic form of computer language consisting of 1 and 0 isn't possible for a normal person to get used to. So we have to develop a kind of programming language that many people can recognize and can learn. And that kind of language will be based on what we are speaking every day. For example, like source will be SRC in computer language, in programming language. And also, besides the vocabulary, we also have the syntax in programming. Like we need a semicolon, or a slash, or a bracket.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a very good point. The rules that apply in human languages also apply in computer programming. But that's not a very strong connection. Think about the applications that we are currently using in our everyday life. Now, do you use speech recognition technologies in your computer, in your cell phone? Well, I'm sure a lot of cell phones have that technology that you do not use. So let me show you, for example, now a lot of cell phones, even chip models, have speech recognition technology, and that's the results of general linguistics. Lots of research has been invested in studying phonetics, phonology, and speech synthesis in order to give you something like this. So when you no, don't say anything. So who is the Prime Minister of Vietnam? And, well, because somebody is talking, so let me... you need to be quiet because the computer is stupid and it cannot send other signals. What is the population of India? Oh, we need to come up. Yeah. Still slow, but this is it. Right? So speech recognition is obviously a link between computer science and languages. What else? Do you use Google Translate from time to time? You should try Google Translate. It is better than you now. Wow, I'm not kidding. Why? Because Google Translate now use the semantic web technology. The more people use Google Translate, the more intelligent it becomes. So when you first put in a text for Google to translate, it generates results. If you are not happy with the result, you may change it. And those human updates will be sent to Google server. It stores there. And then because millions of people use that tool over a long time, it automatically makes very intelligent suggestions for your translation. So you should come back and try it. This is no longer language in the gaps now. Now it's very powerful. And that's also the link between computer science and languages. Right? We also have lots of what we call speech synthesis devices in which laptop, cell phone, robots now talking to human beings. Now that's not purely or that's not merely computational thing. It has a lot to do with general linguistics too. Now, general linguistics also linked with speech and hearing sciences, especially in medical studies. Some diseases can be, healed simply by making the patient to say something over and over again. Have you ever heard that? Well, you should read more about this. Very interesting. During the Vietnam War, some Vietnamese linguists were very famous for studying the connection between languages and the different areas of the brain. When you got injured in a certain area of the brain, you may lose part of your vocabulary. In some other parts of the brain, you may lose your feeling. In some other parts of the brain, you may lose your memory, for example. It very depends on the location of the brain that was injured. So all of these studies have something to do with general linguistics, as we have just discussed. Now, with descriptive linguistics, we look at languages from a different viewpoint. Rather than trying to find the universal or the common things, the common patterns across languages, in descriptive linguistics, we try to see languages as as unique belonging to different communities. And the descriptive linguists always try to observe the languages that they try to describe as they are. Descriptive linguistics were very influential in the United States during the 19th century and also early 20th century, when the American linguists tried to describe languages of native communities living in the United States, like the Red Indians, that's what they call them, especially local tribes. And later on, lots of tribes in Australia were also studied using the approaches and methodology of descriptive linguistics. Now, you should know a very famous linguist in this field, Leonard Bloomfield. Now, when describing local languages, Bloomfield ignored all of the language rules that he had previously studied in syntax, phonetics, and phonology, in order to have a better description of the languages that he tried to study. Now, for example, when we take a look at our Vietnamese grammar now, we will see lots of problems. And those problems came from, general linguistics. When the Western linguists first came to Vietnam and studied our mother tongue, they tried to apply their understanding and their knowledge of English, of French, of the Latin languages in Europe to describe a non-European language like ours. We belong to a very different family with different syntax, very different typology. Right? So when you say cô ấy đẹp, be đẹp the verb on adjective. Yeah, it's an adjective to be sure. But if you have only a subject and an adjective, is it a sentence? No, it does not make a sentence. Right? That's very simple. So when you say ăn mới được, okay, is it verb or adjective? And lots of sentences in Vietnamese are formed that way. Dự báo thời tiết ngày mai đêm mưa, ngày nắng. So, đêm a noun on adverb. Right? Now, all the problem arises because of the transfer of the rules from general linguistics that were applied in studying European language family. And we will have lots of time discussing those issues again. But what I mean is that if you want to have a good picture of a new language that we are trying to study, lots of people argue that we need to adopt the bigger descriptive languages. We need to observe the linguistic world as it is. We may expect some other languages not to have words. They may have only phrases. And if you have already read the example discussed in those books, some languages in the Middle East and in Southern Europe, like Turkish, a whole word is a sentence. There will be no break among the morphemes for you to recognize. So a whole sentence is formed by simply putting morphemes together. So sometimes you have a very long words consisting of 10, 20, or even 30 morphemes. Now, with those cases, descriptive linguistics is the way to go. Alright, so later on, in the activity of the e-learning system, you will have a chance to make an oral presentations about different linguists. We're trying to get to know some of them right from now. In Vietnam, we have a very famous linguist that advocate the viewpoint of descriptive linguistics. That's the Professor Cao Xuân Hào. Have you ever heard of his name?
Yes.
Okay, good to know that. How do you know about him? Mr. Tưởng. Okay. He's like the guru, the spiritual leader of the linguistic circles in Vietnam. It's him to point out that our current grammar system has a lot of troubles because of the influence of the Western system of describing languages. And he's making a revolution. He's suggesting that instead of having nouns and adjectives that we normally describe in school, we should call nouns and adjectives in Vietnamese by a single they put them in a single category called what? The danh từ and động từ now become one category called vế từ. And of course, if we change from that syntax level, it makes a lot of changes in the way we describe sentences. In Vietnamese, sentences are not formed by putting subject and verb and predicate or object together. Most of the time, it will be him and read. Đêm mưa, the him and read. Right? Tối đẹp, so very would be the him and đẹp is the read. So just the subject and then the message. And you have heard of that, right? Him, read, response analysis. All right. So, some points what you think about when we go through this. Now, by the way, general linguistics. What do you call that in Vietnamese? General linguistics. Nó là đại cương. Descriptive linguistics. Miêu tả. Now with comparative linguistics, we spend most of the time now discussing this area. In comparative linguistics, we compare languages. And within these categories, we have three branches. Comparative historical linguistics, we try to study languages from the perspective of their history of development, and the goal of doing that is to find out whether a certain language has family relationship with others or not. For example, sometimes you may ask yourself whether Vietnamese language and Chinese language are brothers or not, because we have lots of similar words, right? Well, that's really the job of comparative historical linguistics. The job of this brand is to prove that whether Vietnamese and Chinese used to be from the same language branch or not. By the way, now let's come back to this question. We have learned a lot from Chinese, and about two of you here, they learn Chinese as a second language. Do Chinese and Vietnamese come from the same language family?
Yes.
And I mean that thousands of years ago, we were Chinese, right? We spoke the same language, and then we rebelled, separated, and developed, a different dialect. So keep thinking about this. This is a very interesting question. It's about our identity. It's about our culture. So next time, when you graduate from this university and someone else asks you that question, you should be in a good position to argue for or against. Okay? That's a very important for you. So that's the job of historic comparative historical linguistics. They try to find a relationship, especially brothers and sisters, okay, parents, grandparents, in languages. Another branch of linguistics that is still very useful today is from typological linguistics. in typological linguistics, we do not try to find out the family relationship among languages. Instead, we try to find out the typology. Where this is a new concept. Typology basically refers to the form of languages, how languages are formed. For example, when we look at vocabulary only, in Vietnamese, in Chinese, each sound is a syllable. Each sound is a word. Each sound is a morpheme. Right? And we have no intonation, we have no stress. Ngày mai em đi học, so ngày mai em đi học. We have 6 syllables here, and we have 6 words, we have 6 morphemes. Is that interesting? Try to tell me some Japanese words that you know. Yeah. Kamizaki, kamikaze, for example. Kamikaze, Suzuki, Azate, Tokyo, Okinawa. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, you see, all the syllables, nearly all the syllables of words in Chinese, and with vowel, not with consonant. Isn't that interesting? Right? There are very few words, or there are very few syllables in Chinese that end with a consonant. Tokyo, 3 vowels. Kamikaze, 4 vowels, no consonant. Right? So we are talking about typologies of language. Now think back to English. In English, sometimes you have one word that is merely one morpheme or one syllable. Like like girl, boy. Right? Sometimes you have 2 syllables and 2 morphemes. Teacher. Okay? To make one word. Now, if you have already read the discussion by James, you will see that some words in the Middle East languages can be from 10, 20, or even 30 morphemes. And that's what we have just discussed about the cases of one word that is equal to one sentence or one utterance. Now, these are the different typologies in languages. Now, the last branch of comparative linguistics is on contrasting linguistics. And in contrasting linguistics, we compare and contrast any languages together for a practical purpose. For example, Vietnamese and South African language obviously has no connection in typologies, in family relationship. But because you are going to South Africa, you are going to do business there, and you need to try to find some way to study South African languages faster, more efficiently. So you need to start comparing Vietnamese and South African languages, whether there are differences on the same form in semantics and in social linguistic rules and things like that. That's the job of contrasting linguistics. So contrasting linguistics came about purely for practical purposes of academic exchanges or economic exchanges. When you do business with a new culture, and you need to try some ways to understand more about their language, to learn their languages faster, more efficiently, to build by lingual dictionary, okay, to take their languages, you need to study the differences as well as similarities. Okay, and that's the job of contrasting linguistics. Now, let's go in further details. Comparative historical linguistics was very influential during the 19th centuries, and that is easy to understand because 19th century was the peak time of development of colonies, okay, of the big power like French, like the British, like the Americans, and when they came to new land, they had a strong demand to understand the local languages, to understand the local culture. Also, at that time, many parts of the world remained largely unexplored, strange, and with lots of interesting things to discover. And at the time, the map or the languages of the world were not already in place like what we have now. And this, requires a lot of work for the linguists at that time. For example, here to answer the question I raised just a few minutes ago about the origin of Vietnamese, whether it came from Chinese or whether it came from the Indian languages. Okay. Whether our ancestor came from China or came from some other areas. They require a lot of studies by these people during that time. Another major concern of the comparative historical linguistics is to explain the changes in languages. Okay. Why does a certain language change? And what may be the reasons for those changes? It can be population immigration and emigration. It can be the mixing of different languages together. We have heard about language concepts, and that's it. It can be purely politics, right? For example, the Chinese version in Taiwan and the Chinese version in mainland China now are somehow different. And the reason is purely political. Taiwan doesn't want to be like China, mainland China. And they want to make sure that their writing system is, and it used to be, right? Why in China, the simplified versions of Chinese script now have become very popular. And lots of people in mainland China now even forget the traditional script. In Taiwan, they are aware of the benefit of simplifying their script, of their writing system. but they don't want to do like what the men are trying to do, for example. So theories about language changes. Now, all of those things come under comparative historical linguistics. Now, by learning about the history of languages and compare them with each other, we may have, we come up with what we call the language trees like this. And you see, this is the French of Indo-European languages. And within this French, you can see that English is closer to German than to French. Right? So English belongs to the Germanic French, while French belongs to the Roman French. Right? So that's why the base vocabulary in English and the base vocabulary in French are quite different. So we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in French, the, ra, ca, sang, six, set, for example. Base vocabulary are very different, right? Yeah, how do you say the moon in French? La lune, for example. You see, completely different. La lune, the soleil, the book, casier, for example. So those are the basic vocabularies that shows that the languages are very different. Now, if you have already watched the movie that I posted in this topic, you will see that French and Gallic and Italian are quite similar. Like, well, I do not speak Italian, but in French, number 2 is the, right? And in Italian is almost the same. Just that the spelling different, D-O-I-S. And I'm not sure how it is, really pronounced. But that's because they are very close together. Now, these trees is the hard work of lots of comparative historical linguists over the centuries. Right. Now, in typological linguistics, we try to categorize languages into categories. And basically, now basically we have 4 categories ranging in a continuum. It can be from purely analytic languages to purely syntactic languages. Vietnamese and Chinese at this end, they are purely analytic. Analytic languages mean all of the words can be analyzed into morphemes and syllables. And in syntactic languages, words come from morphemes that are synthesized together. English is somewhere in between analytic and syntactic. Now, does that ring a bell? When I talk about the continuum of analytics and syntactic, ngôn ngữ đơn tính and ngôn ngữ tổng hợp tính. Well, okay, read those chapters again. Okay, now, so let's be trying to, contrast these areas a little bit further. We contrast the languages. We normally study 2 languages at a time only. And it's very rare to study 3 languages together. Why? Because of the practical need and purpose, we contrast languages in order to teach, in order to study, in order to translate. So they no need to have another language getting involved in the research. Sometimes you might need to bring in another language in order to clarify the point that you argue for. While in typological languages, you need to look at all languages in the world in order to put them into this category, analytic, or this category, synthetic, or this category, polysynthetic. Or put it in this category called agglutinative. And those are the 4 major categories. With contrastive linguistics, we try to identify similarity and differences. And when we identify similarity and differences, it helps us to focus our attention on the possible errors and mistakes that the learner can make. For example, when you learn the phonetics and phonology of English, and you also know about our sound system in Vietnamese, you know that some sounds in English do not exist in our identity, like j, John, John, right? Those sounds do not exist in our mother tongue. And early learners always make mistakes with those sounds. They will try to assimilate those sounds with a sound that already exists in their mother tongue. So then can you say, John, right? John had got a good dog. Yeah, that's what the beginner can say. And it's hard for them to get the sound right. So, that understanding, or that knowledge comes from our understanding of the differences between English and Vietnamese. We also know that lots of Vietnamese have problems with the final sounds. Yeah. Even you, very advanced learners, might forget final sounds when you speak English, right? And when later on, when you graduate and you teach you see okay, a very funny thing. Lots of the students, when they write in English, they forget the plurals. And that's the result of, of what they say in their mind. When they speak English quietly in their mind, they forget the final sound. When they write the English down, they also forget the final plurals or singular, like after verb, after noun, and things like that. Now, European language learners have very few difficulty with that problem. Right? Now, when you speak Chinese, when you learn Chinese just 3 or 4 months, you can have very good pronunciation. Why? Because we have 6 tones, and Chinese have only 4 tones. All the 4 tones are similar to the tones in Vietnamese. Right? So when I had a chance to live with a Chinese family, several years ago, when I lived with a Chinese family in the United States, I homestayed with them, and I tried to use my Chinese to speak with grandma. We just came from Kenji, Clinton, Kenji. And she always praised my pronunciation. that even though that I do not know lots of words and lots of structure to express my ideas, but they always praise my pronunciation and say you have very good pronunciation, and that's easy to understand because our sound system is very similar to the Chinese sound system, right? Both the consonants and the vowels. Right. So the aim of contrastive linguistics is to study language pair in order to identify similarities, differences for teaching, for learning, for translating, for building curriculum, for testing. While with typological linguistics, we study all languages and put them into categories. Now, these three branches are connected to each other. Contrastive linguistics, by comparing language pairs, will provide data for typological linguistics. And typological linguistics is also the foundation or the framework for contrastive linguistic analysis. At the end of this course, you need to write an essay, and that essay is contrastive linguistics. And it will consist of three parts. We will discuss about the methodology and the teaching and all those stuff later on. But what I'm talking about is that in your essay, you will always need to refer to the typology of English, the typology of Vietnamese, and discuss some of the general big differences between the two languages. And when you identify differences, you might also need to explain why they are different by referring to the typology. English is a purely analytic, Vietnamese is purely analytic, and English is mildly simple. And that's how they are different. Now this diagram is very important in language studies. When you go to higher study in languages, it will be used very often. It's a framework for categorizing, for differentiating lots of key concepts. But with the two axes like this, contrastive linguistics will be on the synchronic axis, and comparative historical will be on the diachronic axis. Now, to make things simple for you, we call what do we call this in Vietnamese? No, not trục hoành Việt Tông, cấu trúc hai trục của ngôn ngữ. Trục trục tông đạn, trục lịch đạn, tông đạn, trục lịch đạn. Try to read the book by Professor Bonham. It has a very insightful discussion on this framework. Hai trục này nó được dùng để phân chia rất nhiều các khái niệm quan trọng trong môn ngữ học. Ví dụ như là giữa cái tính hai mặt của ngôn ngữ. Các con nhớ cái hồi học môn học đại cương không? Giữa một cái là cái biểu đạt, một cái là cái cần biểu đạt, nó nằm ở hai trục này. Rồi hoán dụng ý niệm là như ý niệm, người ta phải dùng hai cái trục này để phân biệt. Okay. So contrastive linguistics is on this axis because it is only concerned with languages at a point. It doesn't care about the history of the languages. While comparative historical, they will study the histories of different languages. So that's why you see here, diachronic. Now, if you need some more keywords to search for reading materials on comparative linguistics, we have contrastive analysis. That is a very popular term for comparative linguistics. Contrastive analysis generally refers to contrastive linguistics, how we analyze language using a set of framework, tools, and concepts. Contrastive study, cross-linguistic studies, or even confrontive studies. Now, of all these different names and concepts, contrastive linguistics is most popular. Now, okay, these are also the areas that are related to contrastive linguistics. We have contrastive grammatics, contrastive discourse analysis, contrastive syntax, contrastive generative grammar, contrastive lexicon, and theoretical contrastive studies. Okay, so I think that's just the first part, and this presentation is recorded. Hopefully I can upload it to our meeting system very soon. So far, what have I been talking about? Three branches of linguistics. Okay, tell me again, what are the three branches? The three main branches of linguistics? General linguistics, descriptive, and contrastive, comparative. Inside comparative, we have three more. What are they? Yeah. Yeah. Comparative historical. So language study. What else? Typology. What do you call typology linguistics in Vietnamese? Loại hình học. That's so that you cannot write the material in Vietnamese. Well, not loại hình, loại hình học. And lastly, contrasting. Okay. Okay, so by now I hope you have got an overview of the major branches in languages, how they are connected together, what we have been learning so far with phonetics, phonology, syntax, and semantics, and discourse analysis, in which category? General linguistics. Okay, good. General linguistics. And when I asked you to do a kind of essay at the end of this course, what branch of linguistics do that be? Contrasting. Okay. Contrasting linguistics. I think we need to stop here. Next time, we will talk about the history of comparative linguistics. But before you stop,